Welcome to this episode of Season 4 of The Common Bridge, where policy and current events are discussed in a fiercely nonpartisan manner. The host, Richard Helppie, is a philanthropist, entrepreneur, and political analyst who has reached over 3.5 million listeners, viewers, and readers around the world. The Common Bridge is available on the Substack website and the Substack app. Just search for The Common Bridge. You can find the program on YouTube and wherever you get your podcasts. The Common Bridge draws guests and audiences from across the political spectrum, and we invite you to become a free or paid subscriber on your favorite medium.
And welcome to the Common Bridge. We have a guest here today we haven't seen in a while. Rich, welcome back from the road.
Well, we've seen me recorded, but been away for a little bit, trying to escape the gray. I don't know if this is the end of winter or the beginning of spring, but typical schizophrenia in Michigan in terms of weather.
Yeah, that's right. We had some good stuff. Had some good stuff and some bad stuff. We got a lot to cover today, and I hope you're comfortable because I'm going to do a little bit of a mix of topics we haven't talked about, and I have some stuff from the mailbag here. I think we'll have a lot of fun with this. You ready to jump in?
Absolutely. I love these things that there's no preparation involved.
All right, we'll start you off on an easy one. Let's talk
about. Let me just say this before you ask the question. I know it's a big development with significant implications. And then I could make a lot of speculation. So I obviously read a lot of the news, and that's how they hook people. It's a big development with significant implications.
That's right. Breaking news. This one isn't breaking news.
MSNBC tonight.
This one isn't breaking news, though. I want to start you off across the pond, and we're going to talk a little bit about the coronation coming up. What's your take on that? We're going to have Prince William and Harry. Is Meghan going? What's your take?
I don't take it. I don't follow the royals at all. I hope whatever they're doing that the people over there are happy. Okay, I just don't care.
All right, no drama there. All right, then we'll just jump let's get into the swamp then. What's your, I don't know, elevator pitch or escalator pitch on Trump's indictment in New York?
Well, I actually read the indictment, and it was hilarious. They took one act and then sliced it 34 ways and said that's 34 counts. But wait, it's only a crime if they link it to a felony, which they didn't name. And even the pundits on the left are like, yeah, this is really thin. But it was Alvin Bragg taking the handoff. And what amazes me is that we've been down this, the walls are closing in story over and over again. And it's like people keep falling for it. And as you know, I'm no fan of Trump. I think he just needs to go away. He had his chance. He mishandled it and he needs to go away. But, horrible abuse of the justice system, and people can't defend it. So,
yeah. Anyway. So as much as the left and the right, the Democrats and the Republicans seem to kick themselves in their own shins and step on their own toes. We had a situation in Tennessee when you were gone. I'm sure you followed it, where there was a protest over gun legislation in the House in Tennessee. 3, actually, I think representatives were voted on to be booted. 2 were African American. Probably doesn't look good for the Republicans on that. But what's your take on the whole thing on that, on how that all went down in Tennessee?
Well, look, as you know, I've written a lot about guns, and there are ways to stop violence by keeping firearms away from people that shouldn't have them. My oft-published and oft-referenced policy about graduated licensing, which would stop most of this mayhem. Including the recent Louisville shooting. The guy bought the firearm on April 4th, and a week later was in killing his former coworkers.
Incredible.
It's insane what we're doing. But in our political world, we have some places going into permitless carry, which is crazy. And we have other places saying it's the guns, it's the guns. And I'm saying, okay, if it's the guns, let's deputize the students. Let's have the ATF in full tactical gear supervise them and let's go zip code by zip code and pick up all the guns.
Yeah, okay.
Okay, because that's the two polars that we're between. So the Tennessee legislature. So I had to look up. This is how bad our news reporting is. The headlines: GOP kicks out people that just wanted to speak. They kicked out 2 black representatives. 140,000 people will have no representation because of the evil GOP. And I'm like, what'd they do? Okay, is the question. I want to know, what did they do? Well, after some digging, it turns out that these guys walked into the Tennessee legislature in session, leading dozens or hundreds of people, shouting through megaphones and destroying the representative democracy that they're part of. Okay, like there's ways for them to get behind the podium, and all these legislatures have their rules, and so they're like protesting the government that they're part of, and it reminds me back when all these groups were taking a knee about alleged police brutality. That's something that's off the radar these days. The Ann Arbor City Council are all taking a knee for better police behavior, and I'm like, guys, the police department is a department of the city. You're taking a knee against yourself.
Yeah, silly stuff. Yeah.
It's ridiculous, but we keep getting this garbage in the news because people keep buying this stuff.
Yeah.
Anyway.
Yeah. So. What do you do on that? Let's talk a little bit about the lawsuit against Fox News and the Dominion. Actually, it's Dominion's lawsuit against Fox News, a defamation lawsuit. Any take on that, or any kind of global thought on that one?
Great suit. And I think on the larger issue that we talked about, and we've had lots of good guests on, Matt Taibbi, Joe Ferrullo, others, Kevin Allen, about where's the journalism gone. Fox pioneered the affirmation programming. Define a demographic and keep hammering them with stuff that'll get them alarmed and coming back. Well, the next logical extension of that craziness is just complete disregard for the truth. Okay?
Oh, yeah.
And from what I've read about Fox's own internal communication, like they're handing the evidence to Dominion voting systems. Like, we knew this wasn't true, but damn, it was a good story. But it reinforces the bigger point. There's not a market for the truth. So when a place like Fox, in this instance, reports out about, hey, this laptop from Hunter Biden looks legit, nobody can believe them because they keep doing stuff like this around Dominion voting systems.
Saw polling recently that said that some from the Fox viewers said, we know they said that, but we don't care. That's even more frightening, right?
That sums it up right there. Yeah. Okay, it's idiocracy, and it is exactly what we don't need. We need people to be holding the media companies accountable or just walking away from them. And this is why I like to I joke, big development, significant implications. We've the thing that we were trying to like hang Trump on's run out of gas, and we're now reloading with a new one. Yeah. And people keep doing it. They keep buying it.
Yeah.
It's crazy. Yeah.
So during the Trump indictment a couple weeks ago, CNN and Fox again, but CNN more particularly got record ratings for the year. And I just keep going back to, this is more MSNBC and CNN, but they keep saying that, we're just trying to rid ourselves of Trump. Are they? Because I think that their ratings just blow up when Trump's around.
They all need Trump. And the Democratic Party needs Trump very bad. And the Republicans, it's like gum on their shoe they can't get rid of. And like in terms of sensible things that have been said, which there is some sensible stuff being said and little of it getting reported, Governor Kemp in Georgia saying that, you know what, Trump as the front runner, it's going to cost us the election.
Yeah.
He's lost 3 or 4 election cycles in a row. And as you know, I'm well published on that. I think if Trump's the nominee, you could run a ham sandwich against him, and it's going to be a 49 state landslide.
Yep.
Okay,
Yep.
nobody wants him to be president. I mean, I'm not saying they'd vote for Hillary Clinton over him, but I'm saying just about anything else they'd go.
Totally agree. Well, on that same note, let's take a look at what's going on with the Senate and the House and such. And what do you think of the George Santos things? He's kind of disappeared, but then he shows up at the oddest times. I mean, that and Brobert and Majorie Taylor Green. I mean, it's like we have comic book characters in the House and in the Senate nowadays.
Well, we do. So George Santos, all right, it was like, oh my God, this guy made up all this stuff. He's lying. He's telling contradictions. Those were all accurate assessments. He blends right in. He fits right into Washington. I mean, I saw one thing where they laid it side by side against, Biden's record. And all of a sudden, George Santos, who's clearly not qualified to do anything, it's like, never mind. He's just fits in there with all of them. And so you Marjorie Taylor Green and Lauren Brobert, the only question is, okay, there's Larry and Moe. Where's Curly? Where's the third stooge? And there's got to be like a desk in a newsroom that's the Marjorie Taylor Green desk.
That's right.
We're going to go find her and make her say crazy stuff.
That's right.
And
that's right.
And then you look over in the Senate and you've got Diane Feinstein. They're finally going, well, maybe she's not cognitively all there, physically all there to be the senator from the biggest state in the country, said the political party that has John Fetterman and Joe Biden in it.
Right.
And then you said, well, who's she going to be replaced by? And you've got a Barbara Lee. I think her first name is Barbara Lee. That is 76-year-old, long track record, progressive representative. And she's probably the most reasonable because the other two candidates are Katie Porter and Adam Schiff.
Yeah, right.
And Schiff can't get in the same room with the truth if his life depended on it. And to knock out Katie Porter, just go watch the Bill Maher segment with her and Piers Morgan. She starts out by exaggerating all the talking points around January 6th, making stuff up, which I guess flies, and then just gets her head handed to her by Piers Morgan. But one of them, either Adam Schiff or Katie Porter, is now going to end up in what used to be the greatest deliberative body in the world. So it's a shame.
Yeah, and there's some urgency there because with Feinstein, with the margins being so close, with one of them gone or two of them gone, all of a sudden the GOP can run the Senate, right? So they can win the votes straight away.
Not really, because if Senator Feinstein is unable to serve, then Governor Newsom will appoint another Democrat.
But that's why.
The Democrats earn their majority.
Yeah.
In the election cycle. Good job, Herschel Walker and Donald Trump. But they're going to be fine. They're going to hold that. If you're a Democrat, you should probably like that.
Yeah.
But I can't believe any thinking person isn't cringing at who's going into Washington these days. I mean, it's absurd.
And Rich, you've had a long, storied career, successful career in business, and you're an entrepreneur, you're a philanthropist, and all. And you a lot of your colleagues, 20, 25 years ago, and you included, would have been great representatives, still would, great representatives, great senators. And I'm hearing that there's no desire to want to jump into that cesspool now, and that helps, or that hurts our country as a whole, does it not? When the good minds and the good business minds and the good or the quality minds don't want any part of it because it's so silly. That's a bad situation, is it
It
not?
is. We used to go to, it could be a business person, an academic, a states person, a military person, and say, you know what, you've proven yourself and now you're ready for bigger responsibility. Will you be our leader? And now we've devolved to this sideshow, and the primary system's hurting us very
Hmm.
badly, hurting the country. We've talked about what voting reforms might need to be like, but I tell you what, when you have entrenched power, it's very, very difficult for people to make changes because it's just going to impinge on their power that they have developed.
Yeah.
And if you're sitting in a governor's chair now, or the presidency, or a Senate seat, and what's your incentive to change?
Yeah. Well, I've asked you off the record several times, "Hey, Rich, you ought to run for office." You're like, "I don't want any part of that." And
No.
and there's a great example, right?
Yeah.
And
I mean, but I will tell you this, Brian. Look, I'm a problem solver, and if my president or my governor, called me today and said, "Look, we want you to work on whatever, guns, voting, healthcare, things I'm reasonably qualified in," I'd go and serve to the best of my ability, with a nonpartisan effort. I mean, that would be true if it was, Rick Snyder, or Gretchen Whitmer, or Donald Trump, or Joe Biden, or any of them.
yeah.
Um, but we've gotten away from this notion of service, and now it's politics is entertainment, and the three villains here are the Democrats, Republicans, and the media system.
Well, we've got some darker topics coming up, but before we get there, I want to ask what your opinion is on uh, Anheuser-Busch and who is it? They've got Dylan Mulvaney, the newly, she's been a woman, or says she's been a woman now for a year, and she's now the spokeswoman for Anheuser-Busch products, or Bud Light in particular. I think that's how that goes. I've been following it. What do you think about that?
Well, first of all, Bud Light, despite the fact that we drank that after most of our hockey games, is pretty wretched stuff as far as beer goes. And
Oh no.
so I don't have a dog in this fight, and
So we're not going to talk about Schlitz or anything like that. It's just going
really,
to.
InBev, they can do whatever they want to do in terms of that. Um, but it's interesting that you know we hear about this Dylan Mulvaney, a caricature of a young woman. We don't hear about Kiara Bell, who sued the National Health Services in the UK over being rushed into detransitioning, or into a transition like that. And, there's been a lot about this transgenderism, and really where it is. And look, there are people that are genuinely, intersex, that have, you know, they may have both female and male genitalia, like gonads and a vagina, or um, some other combination of that, and there needs to be some kind of affirmation as they work through that process. I've personally known people that did develop outside of what their genitalia might say. It happens on a fairly natural basis, but this expanding and trying to tell little boys and little girls that you're not a little boy and a little girl, it really, there's not a scientific basis for that. It's really more fetishism, and getting people to have to buy into that.
Mhm.
Um, that and when you see it spreading to young teenage girls, this is the population that get bulimia and anorexia and cuts themselves, and this so-called affirming care. It's like telling Karen Carpenter, yeah, you're fat. um,
Mhm.
and actually someone said, well, you can look at Karen and tell her she wasn't fat, and I'm like, hello, look at you know Dennis there, and Dennis is a boy. Okay, you can
Mhm.
do that.
Yeah.
And when you look at what other countries are doing, like Finland, and the United Kingdom, cutting back on this, why we're not pumping the brakes in this country for juveniles. Now, again, I'm an adult wants to do anything they want to do to themselves. you've reached an age of majority, you're free to do that. I hope you find happiness. But this running this down on little kids who are being sexualized way before their time and interrupting natural puberty is it's insane.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, and the social mores and how it's being pressed among kids. A good friend of mine runs a charter school here in Michigan, K through 8, and all 100%. And this is over 40 girls in her 8th grade class. All now say that they're non-binary, and so there's a social and there's an online message, is there not, where it's being pressured, and girls that age, everything's confusing to them anyway. So instead of just dealing with the angst of puberty, they just decide, well, I must not be a woman. And I just think there's a lot
It's
of screwy messages going on.
yeah. Well, the term I've heard, it's called sudden onset gender dysphoria.
Yeah.
Okay. It's look, there's a couple of things that some people subscribe to as science and some don't. One's called autogynephilia, which is a form of a sexual response in biological males that they're characterized by the idea of being female, and the opposite of that called autoandrophilia, which is a form of sexual response uh, in the opposite of females wanting to be male. Um, but it doesn't kind of like invade like a virus that you know s- requiring a society to buy into someone's fetish or caricature as some kind of statement of freedom is insane.
Hmm.
And even I read a lot about topics, and I read 2 stories on transgenderism that were supportive in the New York Times over the weekend. You got to read the comments. The comments, there's so many that said, look, I'm further to the left of anybody in the Democratic Party. I've been that way, but no, this is what we're doing to kids. This is a bridge too far. We got to stop.
Yeah, I
So
agree. And and
there's
and,
a
and what about the suicide risks involved with all of that as well? Because you're already taking an age group that, nowadays through social media and through a lot of other things too, is much higher suicide risk. What are the impacts of this kind of thing going on as well? Do you think it's muddying the
well,
waters, making it greater, or what?
yeah. Well, first of all, there's no credible study that says that an adolescent that says they have gender dysphoria that is denied the ability to have people participate in that is going to be any more suicidal than the opposite of those.
Hmm.
But also, when I hear that, it reminds me of the person that says, "Listen, if you leave me, I'm going to kill myself." It's a form of emotional blackmail.
Yeah.
No different than a young woman saying, if you don't let me date the 21-year-old college guy next door because I'm so in love, I'm going to kill myself. You wouldn't give in to that. There's times you got to step up and be a parent and get the right care and make sure that they're in a safe place. And there's lots of different ways to do that. But the notion that we have to uh, put in dangerous chemicals to people, adolescents, stuff them full of cross-sex hormones, and then surgically mutilate them so they don't kill themselves is a crazy argument. And and again, as a nonpartisan person and someone that's trying to solve a problem and find the middle ground, I don't think it's unreasonable to say reserve that type of intervention for adults, let them do what they need to do. And when you have somebody that's medically um, uh, intersex, again, I'm doing a couple examples like that. That's a very private thing between the family and the person and the medical community. Let them work that out. But to take a perfectly healthy young man or young woman and begin trying to transform them in a Frankenstein way because of what's in their head and making the world conform to everything they want to say. No, there's no good future for society doing that.
Yeah, and there's a
So
couple of law.
let's not let all, and look, it gets the same thing about, oh, you're people are saying, well, certain persons, they're against drag shows. Look, there's been transvestites and there's been drag shows since the beginning of time. The Bible talks about eunuchs, right? That's from as far back as we can record. Nobody has an objection to drag shows, but is that really part of the first grade curriculum? I
Yeah.
mean, I've hired a lot of people, and we would interview them and find out what their education was like. Do they have math skills, problem solving skills? Can they read, can they write, etc.? Can they research? We've never had a situation where we said, something, their school district didn't have drag shows in the first three grades, and so they're just missing out on their education.
Yeah.
That's
There's a couple of pending lawsuits right now in the U.S. Where parents are suing the school districts because the teachers and the counselors on those two instances have kept a secret of these parents' children who are in the school, and where the child has said, "Well, I think I need to. I'm going to, I'm transgender, but I want a different name, so call me a different name at school." And and the teachers and counselors have protected that at school and not told the parents what's going on. I have a feeling I know what your thoughts are about that.
Well, look, you've got school systems. They can't give a kid an aspirin or a Tylenol that for a headache. They're not allowed to administer anything like that. That it's trying to twist the notion that the child doesn't belong to the parents or doesn't belong to the family. Um, there's a duty within the education system if a child's being abused. Um, but what you have to be careful of is that slippery slope of what defines abuse versus what decides good parenting. There's a bill that has gone through at least the legislature in Washington. I've been reading that over the last couple of days. I think it's 5599. I may not have the exact number, but it's basically trying to say that not buying into somebody's dysphoria, gender dysphoria, is a form of abuse, and that's crazy.
Yeah, it's a tough one. Yeah.
There's a time when people need to sit down and have a discussion about this, and be the adults in the room, and help guide this young person into a successful adulthood, and don't leave the parents out of this.
Yeah. Okay. Well, I want to go to the mailbag just for a moment. And this is kind of nebulous, but it's a nice tee up. I get this from Dan Powers from Opelika, Alabama. What are your thoughts on the leaks of the information about the Ukraine war from the 21-year-old and his little buddies online?
Well, first of all, we're early in the story. That it was discovered by journalists, not by any of the intelligence agencies.
That's worrisome.
And, a 21-year-old Air National Guard member is the one that's purported to have initiated the leaks and then shared them online in gaming rooms. How was security breached to the point where this information was available to someone at that level of classification? I think there's a lot more to be said here, but you can't fight a war or engage in diplomacy if your security information is compromised.
But and we've got Majorie Taylor Green saying that young man's a hero for leaking that out. I don't quite get that. She's taken some rebukes from her own party on that one.
Well, there's days that Marjorie Taylor Green might say some intelligent things, but I haven't heard any yet. So there's, I mean, I look, I don't, I mean, I just, hear the headlines, and it's like someone's lurking around trying to get her to say something stupid so they can report it. And apparently, you don't have to work that hard at it. Um, so, I mean, I'm going to put her in the Prince William and Andrew and Harry and whatever the princes' names are category. People I don't care about.
We get this one from Mike Cannon in Georgia. Oh, this tees it up nicely. He's in Georgia. Rich, what are your predictions for the 2024 election? Who are your favorites? Who are the underdogs? What do you think? That's from Mike Cannon.
So on the Democrat side, it looks like Joe Biden is steaming toward a renomination at the moment, much to my chagrin, and frankly, I'm a little appalled. But if you look across the Democratic bench, they don't have a lot of options beyond Joe Biden. Okay, unless they go to a moderate like a Joe Manchin. Um, or someone like that.
So you think Kamala Harris is not an option?
Oh no. In fact, Kamala Harris, you know, they ought to, I don't know, they ought to nominate her to the Supreme Court or something. But she's going to be more of an anchor, because people should logically be looking at her as, is she prepared for the presidency? Now she will be protected by the media, but she's clearly not ready for prime time in any form.
So who do you see on the Republican side?
Well, the Republicans have a deep bench. All right. They have Ron DeSantis, who, despite all of the negative reporting, has done a great job as a governor of Florida. You have Nikki Haley. You have Tim Scott. I know, not a very popular choice, but you know, Mike Pence is a reasonable and capable executive. You know, and it's not very exciting, but maybe we could use a lack of excitement for a while.
Right.
But the Republicans' problem clearly is that Donald Trump, you know, is the bull in the china shop. Doesn't seem to care how much destruction he leaves in his wake, and maybe trying to prove a point by running in the primaries and you know, creating havoc. And one of the first primaries, of course, New Hampshire, and Governor Sununu is all but announced that he's going to run.
Yeah.
And he seems like he's a, you know, reasonable executive. So the Republicans' problem is Donald Trump, and the Democrats' problem is Joe Biden and no bench. So
yeah,
there you have it.
Okay. Let's see. I've got Beth Cable. This one, Beth Cable, she's in Chicago, and it's a Chicago question. I'm not sure. We're Michigan and Detroiters, but she was wondering what you thought of the power of the unions and the teachers unions bringing their new mayor into office instead of I guess they were both unions, right? One was a police union, the other one was the teachers union, but the teachers union candidate won in Chicago, and she wants to know if she thinks that's going to happen across the country if unions are back in power.
Well, public unions have always, you know, been in power, and despite, you know, Franklin Delano Roosevelt saying he can't make a case for public unions because who are you negotiating with? And you know, the unions are able to say, look, give us the contracts that we want, and we will give you the workforce, you know, for the elections, and we'll make sure that you get campaign donations. And it's a very dirty cycle. I feel bad for Chicago. The new mayor was tested over the weekend with, you know, mayhem, and instead of saying, you know, condemning the lawbreakers, he said, well, you know what, you really can't blame them because they need a place to go. You know, look at, as you know, I am a fan of the late Detroit Mayor Coleman Young, because when he came into office, first black man elected to the mayor's office in the city of Detroit, famously told the criminals and thugs, this is his words, to get out of town. And he told them, quote, hit 8 Mile Road. And, people said, oh, he was telling them go attack the suburbs. It was not what he was saying. What he's saying is there's not a place for you in the city of Detroit. And we need to get more of that. I don't understand why the mayor feels like he has to put up with that versus saying, no, this is not going to happen on my watch. I mean,
Okay.
imagine if you're a homeowner or a taxpayer, you work in downtown Chicago, and the mayor's like, yeah, well, I guess, they stopped a few cars and terrorized a few people and broke a lot of glass. But it's cool. It's no worries. I
Yeah.
don't get it.
All right, we've got one last thing here in the mailbag, and we can wrap this up. It's from Sam Klein, and Sam Klein is from Lincoln, Nebraska, and he says, Rich, where should I read and watch my news? I don't know where to get real news anymore.
Well, I'm going to recommend that you go to Substack and you pick the writers, and with a with a bit of a jaundiced eye, if you will, read multiple sources. There are other more free press oriented sites out there that are coming online, but the battle's on right now. We've seen that big tech and legacy media have colluded to censor and to try to define truth that is not objective truth. We've talked about it just on this episode that only a part of a story is getting reported, or it's being misreported. Look at the tragedy in Nashville, which you touched on. It ceased being a story when the perpetrator was a quote transitioning close quote young person that went out and murdered little children.
Yeah.
And the first thing they said about this guy in what do they call him, the intel fellow that breached the security for national security. First thing was, oh, he's a white Christian male, therefore these people must like them. We just need to reject that identity politics, reject that really weak media reporting, and try to go to facts. Be careful about media that says, well, this could mean this and this could mean that, and that's a favorite technique. To say, well, there was a car accident. Well, what if the person didn't have a license? Well, what if they had been drinking? Well, is there any evidence they didn't have a license? No, but what if? And that's what they want to talk about.
Yeah.
Okay? It's that's what we have to stay away from, is is the speculation, and get on to what are the facts. And I would encourage people, when they hear something about legislation, ask what's in the bill. Okay. Remember the Georgia voting bill. You couldn't give someone a glass of water. Not true, but that spread like wildfire. And asking that second follow-up question, what would happen, if we didn't take action?
Yeah.
That's what we need to ask. And I was like, we talked about the case with the Tennessee legislators coming in. I literally had to dig. So what'd they do?
Yeah.
Because the headline was the GOP kicked them out because they were 2 young Black representatives.
Right.
Like, well, that'd be pretty extreme. But there's people that bit on that story.
Oh yeah.
And got themselves all lathered up about it. And there's people that got all lathered up that Dominion voting systems were changing votes.
Mm-hmm.
Why not ask the second question? What's the evidence for that?
Yep.
And they were still citing Antrim County, Michigan,
yeah,
on the voting machines. It was like, there's like 6,000 voters up there. I think it's 6,600. There was a parameter file that was misloaded. They caught it right away. They corrected the parameter file, reran it, and they got an accurate count. But that's still being held up. Aha, look at Antrim County. People do even know where Antrim County is.
We do.
Yeah, we do. Yes, we do. It's right up here, and it's not very much. And this is where people got to be smarter about what they consume. But then we'd never know if Prince William and Harry are going to be seated by someone's, is it a wife or ex-wife? Whatever they're up to. We wouldn't know that. But I know this, Brian. I'm going to end where we started. It's a big development with significant implications. Tune in at 11.
That was a great callback. All right. Well, thanks for coming. It's good to see you again, and we'll look forward to the coming shows for the summer. I'm glad you're going to be around.
Right. If we still have an audience after this, I'll see you.
All right, Rich. Take care.
Bye.
Thanks for joining us on The Common Bridge. Subscribe to The Common Bridge on Substack.com or use their Substack app, where you can find more interviews, columns, videos, and nonpartisan discussions of the day. Just search for The Common Bridge. You can also find The Common Bridge on Mission Control Radio on your Radio Garden app.